Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
All right, how's it going, everybody? This is your main man, Scott McKay.
And this is Emily McKay.
And we're coming at you with another edition of The Big Show. Today, Emily, we're going to talk about a topic that I've known about for like 40 years. And I got to be honest with you, the first time I ever heard about it, I was not happy to hear about it. It made me very angry. I didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want any part of it.
I'm intrigued. Tell me about it.
Well, the topic is, are we our true selves when we're around the people we're most comfortable with? In other words, if I'm around my family, if I'm around my girlfriend, my longtime girlfriend especially, not someone I've just met and we're still kind of in the honeymoon stage and trying to impress each other, around my kids, around my longtime wife, maybe my long-suffering wife, when I'm around that person, am I at my most authentic self? And here's why it's troublesome for so many people. Because a lot of times we're cranky, we're more irritable, we're not exactly on our best behavior. We're not editing ourselves because we know and we trust that the people we love will still be there no matter how we act. Now that might be a trouble spot, and it may signal to us we have some self-work to do if we don't like who we are around the people we're most comfortable with. But then again, that only holds if this topic is true.
All right, let's dig into it. We have lots to talk about on this one. So let's talk about how we are in different venues. For example, us and our parents.
Yes.
Are we our authentic self around our parents, or are we just trying to paint a pretty picture?
Well, when we're young, we're immature. We're not out of the house yet. We're under our parents' roof. They're making the rules, and we may not like that. So we may be provoked in ways we aren't, say, at school or with our peers. So maybe it's not fair to say we're our true selves when we're under our parents' roof. But as we get older and we're adults and our parents are adults, I don't know, sometimes the same annoyances can happen. Sometimes we get aging parents and they become a little harder to communicate with. Different things can still happen over the course of your relationship with your parents, can't they?
They sure can. Plus, there's all kinds of parents out there. Some of them were great parents as we were growing up, and some were not. So depending on those dynamics, I think that would vary greatly between one person to another.
Well, if you were abused by your parents, if there was a very abusive relationship, or there was no relationship at all, I'd be hard-pressed to say those are the kind of people you feel the most comfortable around to begin with.
Right. You may have a conversation to the extent of, hey, how you doing? I'm doing wonderful. We've done this and that, not much to report, and that's the extent of that conversation.
You just keep it cordial.
Yes. Kind of sad.
Yeah, cordiality is friendliness in a box. It's not very vulnerable, is it?
No, it's very safe.
But when we're with the people we're most comfortable around, we're free to be vulnerable because we trust that environment. So what do we do with that situation? Are we extra caring and loving and patient towards the people we're most comfortable with? Or do we let the fur fly, let them know, hey, look, I've had enough. There's none left to give today. I had a hard day at work. And really, we carry the brunt of our frustrations out on the people we're most comfortable with. It could kind of go either way, couldn't it?
Those poor souls that have to put up with it. It's, put up with me or else.
Yeah, well, there are good days and there are bad days for everybody. Some days when you're having a bad day and you're dealing with people who are annoying or bosses you have to appease or customers, if you're in a customer-facing role, you have to suck it up. And you kind of have to just put on a happy face and, dare I say, be a bit more inauthentic than you would be if you were feeling like that around people who you trusted to still be there after you had had your moment.
Time to come home and relax and let it all out.
That's why we need a day off, right?
I know, right? Vacation. There you go.
Alone time, too.
Oh, date time.
Well, no, that's two different things. See, if you need a little alone time to decompress from dealing with people in general, I think it'd probably be helpful for the people you're most comfortable around to grant you that time instead of pressing. But if those people are the kind of people who are going to keep pressing and want more out of you because that's authentically who they are around the people they're most comfortable with, then we have kind of a vicious cycle about to work, right?
Yes. And you brought up a great point, because understanding that dynamic between couples, the husband or the wife, the girlfriend, the boyfriend comes home and they've had a rough time, or they have a really, really stressful job. We have to give them that opportunity to unwind, decompress. Otherwise, they might explode and do things they don't want to do, such as yell at us or create drama that we just don't want to deal with. This is a great time to let them decompress, to breathe before we can actually have a decent conversation.
Well, the point that you bring up there is, if you fully expect that when your significant other, the person you feel most comfortable around, the person you spend the most time with, indeed trusts you enough to come home and vent or be frustrated because they just can't bottle it up anymore, in a way, that's kind of a high compliment.
I don't think so.
No?
I totally disagree. That's saying you're my doormat and I can shit on you.
Well, what if the person doesn't come home and treat their significant other like a doormat? They just don't bottle it in anymore. They just say, hey, look, you know what, right now, I need a little time to decompress. Maybe I need to vent about my boss for a little bit, but I'm not going to call you names and treat you poorly and be abusive. I think that would be too far.
That would be having a conversation.
Well, yeah, that would be having a conversation, but it would be having a conversation that's the kind you would have as your true authentic self around the people you're most comfortable with.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah,
so I mean, that's a good idea.
Look, here's the deal. If you still know how to be civil and loving while being honest and expressing your true feelings rather than bottling them up around the people you feel most comfortable with, that's livable. That's reasonable. I think you can actually sort of be proud of that. If you come home and you abuse people and slap people around and act like an abusive drunk when you come home because you know these people are beholden to you and they can't go anywhere, that's just downright evil, and that's when you need to check yourself.
Right. So the true authentic self, is it a good person or a bad person? Could it use improvement? Even though we are our authentic self around those that we love, or those that are close to us, I should say, is that the best version that we can be?
Well, I think all of us could find room for improvement. Life is a journey. We're always going to be able to do better. And there are always going to be those times where we lose it a little around the people we trust and are most comfortable with. And we're going to have to apologize. We're going to have to say we didn't do right.
Wait. You see, I'm perfect. I don't need improvement. Are you saying something? I'm just kidding. We all need improvement.
Well, as she hugs me and coos at me sweetly, we all need improvement, honey. Who's this we?
Yeah.
You know, it's a general feature of humanity.
It is. It's normal. It's to be human.
I'm not sure we've even established yet that there's truth behind where our true self around the people we're most comfortable with. What if we have a special place at home after a long day at work where we just feel the need to vent? I mean, are we a person who's always venting? I think what's happened if we start to treat the people we're most comfortable around like a doormat is we become more presumptuous than authentic. The presumption is the authentic part of us, not necessarily the fact that we're venting all the time. It's the mindset that manifests the behavior, not necessarily that's how we behave, and that's who we are.
That was a lot said. But,
well, it's kind of deep if you think about it, though.
Well, the way I see it is when you're coming home, anybody coming home, I mean, Scott's home all the time. We work together as a team. But hypothetically, when people come home, the question is, do you come home angry and ready to scream and yell and get upset at the slightest thing? Or that you left the cap off the toothpaste, blah, 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 blah. Or dinner wasn't done yet. I'm hungry, I'm tired, and I'm cranky. Those aren't excuse to just let it out and let that person deal with it. Sometimes we got to check ourselves. We're not exactly being abusive, but we're not exactly being kind.
Yeah, we need to be kinder to the people we're most comfortable with, I think, across the board. We kind of assume that we can be there for each other and we can absorb a little. I've had a bad day, you just deal with it. But then again, I think if you do bottle it up and you have to kind of fake your way through it all day long without expressing who you really are, it's like a safe placed event once you get home. It's not that you want to be abusive to these people and cause them pain or anything, but there's just nobody left to feel comfortable to vent to.
I guess the real question is, what is venting? I consider venting as sitting down and saying, here's what my day was, and spit it all out, and expecting someone just to hear me. They don't have to solve my problems, just listen. That is my form of venting.
Yeah, you're right. You don't have to be mean to anybody. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be abusive, and you don't have to be the kind of person who insults the people you're most comfortable around. Generally speaking, we don't insult each other around this house, even if we're venting and we've had enough.
Right. That's true. But I would think when you blow up, blowing up comes from holding it in.
Yes.
And so that's where we're lacking communication, being able to come home, unwind, relax, and get to the point where we can actually have a decent conversation. And even if that conversation is just letting it all out in a form of, here's my whole entire day, just spilling it all out while the other person listens to you, just get it out.
Well, because I'm really comfortable around you, I may also have a higher tolerance for being able to be patient and listen to you than I would for an average Joe. That would be a good thing.
That would be an excellent thing.
Yeah.
That makes us partners.
Yeah, there's lots of different ways to look at this. Now, like I told you, the first time I was ever told this was in high school. And I vehemently disagreed. I go, there's no way who I am at home with my parents and my little sibs is who I really am. And who I try to be at high school is who I really am. I don't know if I was right or wrong. I think the jury is still out on whether the statement that's driving this podcast is true or not. I think it sounds like something that if you're some sort of guru, you're going to want to impose on people. But you see, over the last 40 years, having taken this to heart, I have found that I work on either being a little more blunt instead of fake if I feel a certain way about something, even with people I don't know quite as well or as comfortable around. I'm a little braver in specifying what I want or what my opinions are around people I don't necessarily know as well. I crack jokes at home, and I'm funny.
Yes, you are.
The same way I would want to crack jokes and be funny for even total strangers.
Mm-hmm. And you do very well with that.
I do my darndest to be attractive to you, like we're still on our first date.
Yes.
But I screw that up because I get cranky, and there are things that happen in this house on your part and on my part that we wouldn't have dared do on our first date because we're more comfortable around each other. But I don't know if that's necessarily unhealthy. I think that's more authentic.
Yes, well, that's being able to communicate and say, here's what I'm thinking and feeling. But we would not necessarily do that on a first date. We reserve certain information for later.
Right. Like, okay, look, I'm just not in the mood for this today. I've had enough. I don't want to talk about it. Or, you know what? I'm really irritated right now, and I'm going to get extra irritated because you did something to provoke me, and you don't even know what you did to provoke me, but I'm irritated anyway. And the other person's just like, all right, well, you know what? Because this is the person I'm most comfortable with, I'm going to give her space. I'm not going to get insecure and go, oh my goodness, do they love me anymore? You know, is something bad happening here? You'll just kind of trust that, you know, we've seen this movie before. You'll be all right. If a guy needs to get his T levels checked, or if there's something health-wise going on that's causing you not to be your normal self, I would surmise that the first place that deficiency in your behavior or your mindset or your demeanor or whatever you want to call it, the first place that's going to show up is with the people you're most comfortable with.
You know, I believe you're right about that. But you know what's interesting is most of us aren't aware of who we are as our own authentic self. For example, like you mentioned that at home, you didn't think that was your authentic self when you were younger, but at school you thought that was you. So a lot of times we can't see ourselves for who we are. Only people can see us to some degree. So I think a lot of times we perceive ourselves the way we want to be.
You know, keeping it a buck, I can't watch old home movies of myself as a teenager.
Who can? I can't
Oh
either.
my gosh, I was insufferable.
I'm just embarrassed.
People are listening to this show going, hey, nothing's changed. Well, after 20 years and, lots of listeners, we hope we're a little more sufferable than insufferable.
Right. Well, I think there's something to be said about getting older. You just get to the point where you just don't care.
Yeah, you also get a little more self-awareness. Maybe you're not so much of a people pleaser. You take your lumps socially and you hopefully learn lessons from it. And then it becomes authentic habit, and your authentic self improves. You become a better person, more of a big four man, big four woman.
More relaxed.
Yeah, and you've done the work and it shows and it's real. It's not fake. You're not stuck with being who you've always been, right? You don't have to end up like your aforementioned parents who you're being cordial with.
Right, or biting your tongue all the time. You learn to be more forgiving of that poor tongue.
Yes, that could get painful after a while. Possibly even infected.
Oh, boy.
I think now would be a good time to talk about a certain event that drove this topic today.
Oh, yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, just this past week, something very strange happened at Casa McKay. I got a call from an area code in Dallas, and we live in San Antonio. So Carrollton, Texas is suburban Dallas. It didn't say scam likely, so I answered it. Could have been a business call. And a machine on the other side said, please wait while we connect the call. And I went, oh, goodness gracious, here we go. It's going to be telemarketing after all.
And then I receive, my phone rings, and it says, it gives me a message. It first asks the other person on the other line who's calling, and then it sends me a little text if that person responds, and then I know whether to answer or not. Well, it said, good morning, this is Scot.
You actually have that feature on your phone?
I do.
Oh, see, I thought this was all accidental. Well, I guess we've let the cat out of the bag already, all right? It was indeed going to be my wife at the other end of this call once it got completed. But what had happened, I asked ChatGPT this later and it confirmed it. A predictive dialing system, widely associated with telemarketing, had called me, and instead of connecting me to an agent back at the shop, it connected me to the next person in line.
Which is me.
Which had to be you because you were the next phone number in line.
Right. And what was interesting is on there it said, good morning, this is Scot. But the phone number was not your phone number.
It was Carrollton, Texas.
Right. So I didn't think nothing else. So I went ahead and answered the call thinking, well, they said who they were. It must be somebody, right? So I answered the call and said, hello. And you're like, well, hello. And can I help you with something?
And I was like, well, you called me.
No, I didn't. You called me.
That's what you said back to me.
Exactly,
right?
yes.
And we started talking to each other, and I said, yeah, you know what? I think both of us have been scammed. And you said something very cute. You went like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? And this whole time, we have no idea we're talking to each other. We both believe we're talking to a stranger.
Right. I'm thinking you're somebody from different part of Texas.
Right, exactly. And it was some sort of strange call and, gosh knows what happened. But indeed, what had happened for real was the telemarketing system glitched and connected the two receiving callers in line instead of connecting each one separately back to an agent.
How weird that we were in line together.
Well, I think it was by phone number issued or maybe by name or something like that, whoever was on the list of people to call. We were both on their list to call.
Connected us. But the question we kept getting asked is, well, didn't you recognize each other's voices?
Well, here's the funny part. You said, well, I'm sorry this happened. Have a nice day anyway, which I thought was kind of funny. And I said, yeah, same thing to you. And I hung up the call, presumptively with a total stranger, right? With two thoughts. First of all, isn't it nice that in the year 2026, two people who are total strangers and inconvenienced by the same thing at the same time can be nice, friendly, and civil to each other? And the second thing I thought to myself was, my goodness, she had a cute, adorable voice. That has to be the sweetest, most adorable feminine voice I've heard since I met my wife. And, then I went on with my day.
Now,
right?
For me, when Scot said the last sentence, I don't remember what you said, but my first thought was the cadence. Although your voice was different, the cadence and that last sentence, I'm like, that kind of sounds like Scott. But then I thought, well, it's a entirely different phone number that I'm looking at. So I'm thinking it couldn't be my husband. But it sure did kind of had that cadence that you have. So I kind of wondered about that. And I was going to ask you about that later, but totally forgot about it.
Yeah, we were cooking breakfast together the next morning when I casually mentioned it. And you're like, yeah, that was me. And to that point, I didn't know it was you. Now, see, that's why it's weird. The several people we've mentioned this to were like, how did you not know it was each other? You're married to each other. Well, because our minds had been conditioned based on the circumstance of that call to not just expect, but to completely realize you're talking to a stranger. There was no provision for it to be you.
Well, plus the electronics gave the sound a different tone.
Yeah, you're saying that, but I'm not so sure it's true.
You did not sound like you.
Well, you did not sound like you. You did, but you didn't. And here's what I think happened and why it's pertinent to this topic. I think you and I have never talked to each other as strangers before. We've never had a conversation where we carried ourselves as if we're talking to someone we don't know and who we're not comfortable with at all.
Well, we started on Match, and then we talked on, I guess, their private messenger platform.
Yeah, we typed to each other before we actually talked in person.
Right, and then we finally talked on the phone after we got to know each other a little bit. So
where yes. I said, my goodness, she has a cute voice. And then we met in real life. So we've never really
been strangers.
Talked to each other as total strangers. Right. And that to me is why it was different. Your voice was different. How you carried yourself was different. How I carried myself was a bit different because of this topic.
Well, I would still say that was still my authentic self.
I agree. But you weren't comfortable around this stranger enough to be totally yourself.
Well, I'm not going to spill my guts and say, hey, this is all my life issues or problems or things that have happened wonderful in my life. Those are not for my strangers. That would be for you.
Yeah, but that I think is obvious. The part I'm talking about is even the words you used, the cadence you used, your tone of voice had more reserve to it. It was more measured. It was what you reserve for someone you don't know very well, which says to me that when you're around the person you know better, you're a lot more relaxed, and then your tone and your cadence is more relaxed, which, drum roll, is a good thing.
Right. Well, my guard was up.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, who is this guy calling me? What does he want? I was more
That's right.
cautious. Yes.
Right. And that's why I didn't recognize my wife on the end of the phone, because you weren't representing yourself like my wife would. You were representing yourself as a stranger would with your voice. And that was hard for a lot of people we talked to wrap their heads around, going, oh, come on. Don't you recognize each other's voice? But we didn't have the same voice with each other. We were talking to each other in stranger voice.
Absolutely. Well, not just stranger voice, but I'm protecting myself and being very guarded when I was having that conversation.
Yeah, someone mentioned to me, it's kind of like the Pina Colada song. You're talking to a total stranger and then you realize, my goodness, it's you. So yeah, Scott, you were saying to yourself, this person said that this person has the cutest, most adorable voice since you met your wife, and you're thinking, I should slap myself a little bit for being so attracted to this woman's voice. But then you realize it's your wife. It was actually sort of okay after all. But it was weird. Because I thought to myself, man, she sounded really adorable. I bet there's a lucky guy out there. You know what I mean?
You're the lucky guy.
Yeah. And then here we are back to the Pina Colada song. Hey, it's you. It's me. I'm the lucky guy. But it is really true. There are subtleties, even in terms of how you deliver your speech, how you carry yourself, your demeanor, that are different around people when you don't know them as well yet. So this brings up the whole idea of when we're on first date behavior and we're being our best selves. It seems to me the sooner we can get to being our authentic self, being comfortable with each other, the more we're going to connect and have a greater likelihood of a second date, but only if our authentic self is the kind of self the other person would want to be with again.
The kind of person you deserve.
Deserving what you want. So what's the takeaway here? To me, it's we should work towards being the kind of person who is attractive and nice to be around. I'm saying nice as a generic term, not Mr. Nice Guy, but pleasant to be around, attractive to be around, interesting to be around, even when that person is someone we're most comfortable with.
Yeah, we don't want to be that person everybody has to walk on eggshells to, not have us blow up.
Yeah, so whether the statement itself is valid at face value, you are your most authentic self when you're with the people you're most comfortable around, I think we can co-opt that statement and make it our own and make it a potentially good thing if it's true and behave like that. And I think it'll improve not only our dating lives, but certainly our relationship with a significant other if we're in that relationship already, and indeed our social lives and perhaps even our careers if we believe and act that way.
Yes, and that's important. Some people might say, well, wouldn't that be inauthentic if you try to be something you're not? Well, if you're trying to improve yourself and be something you want to be, that's your authentic self. It's just you have a journey to get there, and the awkwardness of it is well worth it.
Yeah, that comes back around to what I've talked about for years, which is why self-help fails so often. Because when you're in the process of improving yourself, you feel inauthentic, and this society just bitch slaps inauthenticity. At least it used to. If you're coming off fake, that's not good. And I think most people who mean well are trying very, very diligently not to come off as fake. So when you're trying to improve yourself and you're not there yet, it's going to feel like you're faking it till you make it to some degree. But the way I've always thought about it, my comeback for that kind of thinking has always been, look, you can be who you want to be and you can be on the journey to get there. And that's a real journey with a real destination attached, which makes it authentic even if you haven't reached it yet. That's the way I feel about it.
And I would agree 100% with that, because that's who you're striving to be. And I think the authentic self is your values, your ideas, your ethics, the things, the character that makes you. So you may not be perfect. None of us are perfect. We're going to screw up everywhere. But the authentic us wants to be the best part of us.
I think a great way to think about this is, who are you? What is your identity? What are your values? Who do you want to be? And if you're that person even when no one else is looking, then you'll be that person with the people you're most comfortable around, not because it's some sort of performative action to appease them or to please them, but because it's for you. It's who you are. It's you staying true to yourself. And then you're more likely to be that authentic self around the people you're most comfortable with. And you're also more likely to have the confidence and the wherewithal to be that person around the people you're just getting to know. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that idea. That's true peace.
Yeah, and I think it would be really attractive.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're just a real jerk and like it that way.
Well, one jerk likes another jerk. They get along great together.
Yeah, and they're not our audience anyway.
No. Our audiences are awesome. You guys are wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'd love to talk to you. If you are listening to this show on the X and Y on the Fly feed, go to scotandemily.com, 1T in Scot, and get on our calendar and talk to us for half an hour and let us know how it's going. If you're listening to this show on the Mountaintop Podcast feed, go to mountaintoppodcast.com. Same thing. Red button in the upper right-hand corner of the site. You can get on my calendar, talk to me for free for about half an hour. And ladies and gentlemen, if it makes sense to put together a coaching program to help you get to the point where you're feeling, you've gone from good to great and you're your most authentic self, no matter who you're around, man, the more I think about that, the cooler it sounds, right? Go ahead and get on our calendar and give us a call. We're there for you. Now, this has been an interesting show. I don't think we've ever had a show quite like this one.
No, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's a complex topic in a way, but utterly simple in another.
Yeah, it's one that's important because it requires self-reflection.
Yeah, and almost is never talked about because it's uncomfortable.
Well, yeah, because we have to see our own imperfections, and that's not pleasant.
Never. All right, everybody. As always, it's been a pleasure to do this show for you. And until next time, this is Scott McKay.
And this is Emily McKay.
Be good out there.
And have fun.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.